Hey y'all, how are you doing today? We're going to be doing two things today. We're going to start with Paige Hanna. She did a second response on the YouTube channel, Under the Rug. And actually, you know what? Her video came out the day that I was packing for Mexico, and I was like, nope, I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to pack and I'm going to do my thing, and we'll get to when I get back. I was thinking maybe I was going to stream when I was in Mexico, but honestly, the internet there might be a little bit choppy, and I hate streaming when the internet's like blah, 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 blah. It drives me nuts, honestly, especially having to deal with it in the VODs. So we're going to watch her response today. And I know it came out a couple days ago. If you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to ask it in the chat, or if there's anything you need to like refresh on, feel free. I'll do my best to answer.
Here we go again.
I like her jacket.
This is the second video where I explain my relationship with Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke and give some understanding of the timeline of events that led up to where they are now. I left off in the first video explaining that anytime you're willing to make somebody or something your God over a higher power, then you're in danger of changing who you are.
Because Jodi was like, hey y'all, I'm God. Treat me as if I'm God itself. And a lot of people, I don't know if a lot of people were giving her the side eye, but definitely she was starting to give Jodi Hildebrandt the side eye. It seems like there was a good amount of people that were like buying into this whole connection things, but there could be other people as well that were like, I don't know if connections is for me. I don't know. Jodi's a little bit too aggressive, and I don't really see her as a God. Hi, Rain. How are you doing today? How's it going?
To please them. And in this video, I'd like to talk about some of the things that I saw that showed me where I was giving Jodi control, where I was giving Ruby control, and where I was dropping me and my beliefs to serve that God or their God. I'd like to remind you that I am not doing this to seek money. There's no monetization. There's no comments below for a reason. I don't want anything to detract from my ability to be a good mom. And so the temptation to read comments is so great that I knew I needed to shut those off. I have provided an email.
That's right. Don't forget to tell Ruby Franke's sister, turn off your comments maybe. What's her name again? Bonnie, right?
Address below for any comments or questions. And they are screened by somebody. So anything hate-filled or shaming is deleted before it sees me. I was blown away by the emails that I received. I thought that there would be plenty of questions, but I hadn't anticipated so many of you taking time to write me the most kind and validating and compassionate emails I've ever received. And I spent a lot of time crying at my computer as I read them, because I think you could see from that first video, there were some emotions that I thought I had processed.
I mean, maybe Bonnie should do the same thing. Like, hey guys, I have an email set up. It's going to be heavily fucking screened. So if y'all think I'm sending me shit, I ain't going to see it. I don't know. Maybe she needs to do that as well.
but it hadn't gone deep enough. And it's taken me a few weeks to put out another one because I needed to make sure that I was good, my family's in a good place before I could continue. And it will continue to be that process. I'm not deliberately trying to leave anybody hanging. I will say that nothing that I share will be sensational.
I know. I wonder when Jodi, whenever she tells her clients, you have a porn addiction, I wonder if she just has like, I don't know, some sort of like power just like emanating within her veins where like it gives her so much power over them. And she's like, you have a porn addiction and I'm the only one who can help you. And they're like, oh my God, Jodi, I have a porn addiction. I had no idea. Okay, please, please, please tell me everything that I need to do. And she's like, yes, more people under my power.
I'm giving a very methodical timeline of events and my understanding as it escalated into my leaving connections and then recognizing where it went afterwards. It won't do anyone any favors for me to just jump right into that without explaining how somebody as masterful as Jodi Hildebrandt can walk you down a path to where you completely stop trusting your own judgment or the judgment of family members who love you and
she was like a fucking cult leader.
Basically give her all of your will. I introduced Ruby to Connections in 2019 or 2018, 2019. My husband and I took Kevin and Ruby on a trip to England and Scotland.
We watched this on stream.
And Ireland for the purpose of family history. Now, anybody that was within the Connections program knows that where I was the most passionate was in...
Oh, wait a second. I don't know, actually. Hold on. Kiki said, is that a painting or a view? I have no fucking idea. Wait, it looks like a painting, but I think it might be it's a windowsill. I don't know. I'm pretty thrown off too. I think it's like blurred out. I don't know. I have no idea.
Explaining
Somebody email her and
that
ask.
pain and peace concept, that I explained in the first video. If you're not in peace, then you're in a state of pain. And my focus was that sometimes that pain is generational. And if you research your family's history, a lot of times you can see the pain, find the pain, and work to heal it in your own life, breaking those chains, those generational chains. And
well, they were going pretty far back in the family history, though. I don't know how going super fucking far back like that would help with your current pain. Like, I get like generational trauma, but they were like digging pretty far back where these were relatives that they've never met before, or like were super dead by the time they were born.
Was that understanding that I shared with Ruby and Kevin. So we took this trip, and I loved it. I loved my time spent with them. I loved learning about Ruby's family and educating her in where they came from. Kevin's family, the same. And it was really that trip where my husband and I became very close to Ruby and Kevin, and came to understand them better.
What?
On that trip that Kevin referenced in one of his police recordings, we did talk a lot about connections. I believe at that point Ruby had already been seeing Jodi as a therapist, and I
don't think Ruby was seeing Jodi as a therapist. I thought it was they hired Jodi as a therapist for Chad. I don't know if she was seeing as a therapist. Like maybe later on as a marriage counselor, like later on.
I actually don't know if that recommendation did come from me or mutual friends, but she had been seeing her. I don't believe Kevin was. I do recall Kevin saying, "This is a cult." And if you had looked at Jodi's Google reviews, there were a lot of people on there that also said this was a cult.
Why?
In my ignorance.
Wait, so Kevin, you already identified it as a cult. Why were you continuing with these therapy sessions with Jodi? Why did you let her divide your family like this? Oh boy. You know what this reminds me of? Getting like Howl's Moving Castle vibes back here. All those who think it's a win or living in distortion, do better, guys. I can't, the word distortion and connection, I can't. Someone kept saying the word connection in the Karen retrial, and I just kept thinking of connection with a fucking X.
Ignorance, I didn't know what a cult was, and I didn't know how a cult functioned.
Hi, Fire.
Do you know how a cult functions? Here's some key things that I've since learned.
Teach us.
A cult has one person.
She's going to teach y'all, so y'all never get into a cult, okay? Listen to her. I haven't pre-watched this, though. I don't know if she gives good advice or not.
At the top, who is the exception to the teachings that they teach.
Okay.
I watched a documentary called Happy Shiny People that was very well done on the Duggar family. And as I was watching it, it was very painful because they followed this leader who was teaching them about family and about how to raise children, who was not married and who had no children. A lot of your emails.
Who else was not married, and who else didn't have good relationship with their children? I wonder.
And a lot of your questions said, how could you follow somebody who wasn't married and who had no relationship with their children? Jodi, first of all, didn't share her private information, so and not many of us asked at the beginning. In a parenting class, now would I ask? Absolutely. But at the time, she spoke in terms of parenting as if her children were still a part of her life.
Is she going to drop the tea? Because we know that Jodi's daughter cut her off, but the son, it seems like she still had a relationship with the son, at least when the book was released, but then maybe later on, maybe something went down.
But at the time, she spoke in terms of parenting as if her children were still a part of her life. She spoke, it was a parenting class, so she rarely spoke on marriage, but it was known that she was divorced, but it was alluded to that basically that it wasn't her fault. Obviously that changed over time as maybe
she found out that her husband had a porn addiction, and that's why she's a hard-on for guys who watch porn, even if it's like once or twice.
Started paying closer attention and watching things. But when you're a part of something, do you even think to start asking all those kinds of questions? Here's a parenting class. It came with good recommendation of people I trust. I'm going to step into it. Some of you might do that kind of research, and good job. I tended to be more trusting straight out of the gate than I should have been. And so I didn't recognize that Jodi was the exception to her teachings for a few years.
Yeah, I don't know. If I was sitting in a parenting class and the speaker was not giving us examples about their relationship with their children, I don't know. I guess I would have been like, so do you have children? How many? Okay, all right. I don't know. I guess it would be really odd for me if I was sitting there and they weren't talking about their children and giving examples when they're talking about like a parenting class. Because I feel like one of the best ways to connect with someone is when you have like shared experiences that you can both relate on.
Jodi was also masterful at giving a 10% truth that she could tell and letting you fill in the gaps. So you were telling yourself the story that you wanted to hear. So she would speak to a daughter who, and as she's crying, telling you she didn't want her as a mother and just wanted a Disneyland dad, and you're like, oh, it's because she was holding her accountable, or because the whole honest, responsible, humble thing. Is that the situation? Absolutely not. But that's what she was masterful at. So
I've never heard that phrase before, a Disneyland dad.
Recognizing, you have to recognize if somebody that you're following or somebody you admire practices what they preach, lives by their own lessons. And sometimes that's hard to do. It's the same with an organization. If an organization states that they help people, but you see over and over that they bleed out their employees, just get them to work, milk them dry, send them on their way. If they state to have values that they don't embody, it's no different. You've got to recognize the inconsistencies with the teachings. And it took me a really long time. If I could help you at this point, look at who you follow. Look at who you're married to. Look at your close relationships and see if they live in line with what they state to believe. If they don't, then don't give them power over you. Don't let their opinions be the one to sway you. That's right. You have to go find a higher source of power than yourself that you can rely on as a gauge.
I heard that she divorced once. I haven't heard of the 5 times thing yet, though. Have not heard of that.
As, the spindle on your compass pointing north. Now, Jodi had become north for me. And a big part of the reason she had become north was because she's a licensed therapist. I took that term as being a licensed therapist as she was qualified, that she knew more than me, and therefore I was less than her. When Ruby came on into Connections and Kevin was like, no, this is a cult, we just kind of laughed about it because it was like, oh, he just doesn't want to look, or he just doesn't want to heal what? I have no idea. But those were the judgments that were passed by Jodi, demonstrated by Jodi, and easy to pick up. Because this had helped.
Hey, Lady K, wait, you haven't heard of the paint by numbers? So there's you got this canvas thing. It's divided by a bunch of numbers, and it's like you use this blue color on all the ones that you see. So you paint in all the ones with the blues. And then there's yellow. Okay, you paint all the 2s on here with this yellow, and then you paint in the yellows. And then by the time you're done with it, you have this whole I don't know, some people do Van Gogh, famous artworks and stuff like that, or cute little drawings and stuff. But you have this art piece that you've done, and all you have to do is just paint by the numbers. I've never tried it yet, but it looks kind of interesting.
Me and Johnny, then we were like, no, it really is good. Look this, look that, look this. And so Kevin was willing to give it a try. So in 2020, our friendship with the Frankie's crew, I only met their children once and never heard, I didn't watch their YouTube Frankie's crew. I only met their children once and never heard, I didn't watch their YouTube channel, so I wasn't aware of any practices parenting practices that Ruby did that I thought were glaring.
Really? I don't know. If they took, I have a hard time believing that she didn't watch a YouTube channel. She didn't really watch their YouTube channel, because I saw that she was trying to start a family YouTube channel as well, and I would assume that her being friends with, or her knowing of Ruby Franke and Kevin Franke, at least in the community, was a huge influence on them. Oh my God, these community, this Mormon mom is doing really well. It's a niche little category, and I want to do the same thing, because it seems like she tried starting a YouTube family channel as well. And I would assume that she did it because she wanted to probably get close with them, because it's kind of good publicity, and then try to see how they do it. But I don't know. I mean, it's not a big deal, I guess.
This, and so Kevin was willing to give it a try. So in 2020, our friendship with the Frankie's crew, I only met their children once and never heard, I didn't watch their YouTube channel, so I wasn't aware of any practices parenting practices that Ruby did that I thought were glaring.
Oh, okay. So she's distancing herself from Ruby's parenting practices. I see. I don't know if I believe that she didn't really watch it, though. Hi, Lisette. How are you doing today? Yeah, I don't think it's flexing.
I was aware that she'd sent one of her children to Anasazi, and where that could have been alarming, I had a lot of friends. I knew a lot of people in my...
this is her talking about how they sent Chad to Anasazi because Chad was apparently bullying the brother and then, I don't know, acting up. But it just sounded like it was just normal teenage shit, from what we heard.
In my high school, who had also utilized this program that's intention was to go and basically take kids out of the environment that's harming them and to reset,
throw them into a fucking camp, right?
Them in a way of living off the land and getting closer to nature. And so I was aware of that with the Frankies, but nothing that I thought was
Is the Anasazi camp, is that still a thing, by the way? Did they still run that?
Oh, they're horrible people, or they're really messed up. I mean, I thought they were really wonderful. and continued this relationship, right? Continued with them in a friendship, and continued with Jodi in working in business, trying to grow connections, working, learning to be a coach, because I thought, yeah, why not get certified in this? I know it really well. I practice a lot of it. I know it can benefit others. And this was in 2020.
Oh, hold on a second. So this is so dumb on YouTube. YouTube, when I initially have my chat out, it auto goes to top chat. So I don't see everyone's chat. That's why I was really confused what Master and what Lady K was talking about. I don't know if YouTube cares about the word simp. I know Twitch, yes, but I think YouTube should be fine.
In this year, I can't remember exactly when, but Jodi called.
Hi, good guy.
Sorry, I want to make sure this is accurate. How this came about. Jodi started confiding in me. We would have business calls, and then she would confide in me about having horrific nightmares.
This is how Jodi gets sympathy from people. She's like, oh my God, like the devil's after me. I'm having nightmares.
She said she wasn't sleeping.
What's the other liar again? There's compulsive liars, and there's what's the other one again? There's compulsive liars, and then there's what's the other liar category, y'all? Help me, please. My brain is not working right now. Yeah, I think they say shrimp on Twitch too, but
how this came about. Jodi started confiding in me. We would have business calls, and then she would confide in me about
pathological. Yes, thank you, Lady Acid. Yeah, pathological liar.
Having horrific nightmares. She said she wasn't sleeping, and when I asked the nature of these nightmares, they were out of a horror movie. I didn't understand them. I knew I wasn't qualified to help with them, but I just saw it as like she needed somebody to talk to. She needed someone to talk to express these to, and must have trusted me enough as a friend to explain it.
And this is how she sucks them in.
One thing that was always common and present in these nightmares was that Satan himself was out to get her. And knowing what I know now about narcissists and how narcissists project.
And you know what? Maybe it was just her guilt coming at her with all the shit that she's done to who knows how many relationships, who knows how many kids in the past. But then in order to believe that, we have to believe that Jodi actually feels guilty for those things.
And also have these grandiose views of themselves. I can see that instead of it just being like a stranger out to get her or evil out to get her, it was like Satan himself, like the father of all evil is out to
No, Jodi's like, I'm so fucking important. I'm like almost God. Of course Satan would come after me. Duh.
Get her. Which demonstrates her belief on the flip side of she's called of God to teach connections to the world. And yes, I thought it was weird. It was one of those red flags where I was like, yeah, I see this as a red flag, but I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to make sense of it. Only that every so often, maybe once a month, once every 2 months, I'd ask how she's doing, and she'd say that she had another nightmare, and that it was dark and twisted and terrifying, and had to do with Satan and evil out to get her. Now she, like I said, she'd give you a 10% truth and then let you fill in the gaps. And so a lot of these stories, a lot of things she shared with people was to get you to sympathize for her and want to help her.
It was a way for her to get attention. Because I wonder when she was growing up in her childhood, she's like the youngest, right? Out of like 5 fucking kids or something like that. I wonder if like parents just didn't really pay attention to her. And now that she's an adult, she has this like attention-seeking behavior where in order for her to get it, she has to get people to feel sorry for her. Come up with these stories like, oh, they're out to get me. Someone's out to get me. You know, Satan's after me. The devil's been after me forever. And you know who else repeated that? Ruby Franke. Ruby Franke repeated that exactly when she was on a call with Kevin Franke. She was like, yeah, the devil's been after me. He's been after me since the beginning or some shit like that. It's like, where did we hear this from? Jodi Hildebrand.
In some way. So she's struggling and she can't sleep and she's trying so hard to help others, and she's really a victim to this job that she has, but she's so good and she's so noble to keep working.
I'm so good. I'm so noble. Oh my God. Oh man. She just thinks so highly of herself. Hi Kurt, how are you doing today? Oh my God. The way that she's phrasing this. The Jodi. I could totally see Jodi being like this.
Was the constant theme of what she preached to people. Anybody who stayed within her program long enough, the ones that she really had locked in, that she was bleeding for money and power, can attest to that pattern. I never once saw her ask for help. I only saw her state a problem, and be upset and be like this, like victim-y and whiny, until somebody was like, well, this is what we could do. Well, this is how we could help. And nobody was worse than my husband and I, because we were on this business board and trying to grow this business. And so she would do that over and over. And I was starting to get tired.
Yeah, people like that are exhausting.
By the end of 2020,
Remember how Kevin Franke said that there was a pastor, I think, that would literally go over to Jodi's house. Like, he would drive all the way to Jodi's house and he would stay there from 4 to 5 hours at a time, trying to console her, trying to talk to her and all that stuff. And I think at some point the pastor was like, okay, you know what? Like, I have my own personal fucking life. Like, you gotta find it some other way. And then Ruby was like, oh my God, Kevin, we should totally take Jodi into our house and let her live with us. Like, let's take care of her. And Kevin's like, I guess, because he probably got guilt trip into it.
I was telling my husband, like, we give her advice all day long. We set up strategy meetings. We talk about different ways she could move to grow this program, not in a multi-level marketing format, but in an actual successful business, like many other coaching programs, like many other things. We knew it was possible.
Yeah, that was after Hannah dumped her. Yep, she was like, oh my God, I don't have anyone else to soul suck on. Okay, let me find someone new to soul suck on.
Possible. And over, I just started seeing this cycle of no movement.
And keep in mind, I think at this point, she has like 5, 6, or 7 kids. I know she has 8 kids now, but like, imagine being a mother, you have your own business, you have like 5, 6, 7 kids, and then you also have Jodi Hildebrand here soul sucking the shit out of your fucking life with her fucking problems. And as much as you try to help her, it's going nowhere. She's not doing anything to help herself. She's just draining the shit out of you, draining all your sympathy. Like, ain't nobody have time for that. I'm sorry. No one has time for that. That's like maybe like, I don't know, like a middle school, high school thing, when you have all the time in the fucking world to invest your problems, to invest someone else's problems into your fucking life, right? But when as you're older, you're like, I don't have time for that. No, thank you.
And then I was starting to get agitated with it. Now,
good. Get agitated.
That red flag should have been enough for me to start going, why do I feel off? Why is this something I keep giving time to over and over and over, and there's no change? And she's living as the exception to her teachings with this victim mindset, this everyone's out to get me, or Satan himself is out to get me, and I'm the only one that can do this. And so instead of going, wow, something's really wrong with her, I thought, I'm not kind enough. I am not serving. I am not being more generous with my time. Mind you, I had like 6 kids and 7 kids and 8 kids. And it was totally okay for me to not have time, right? But that's where...
Yeah, I was like, wait, how many kids did she have by then? Because by then, I feel like she would have been so fucking busy. Having like 1 kid alone, a lot of work. 2 kids alone, even more fucking work. But having 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like, that's a lot of work. I don't know if they had a nanny at the time or whatever, but still.
Like, that's the mental aerobics that was happening. That's how messed up I had gotten, was that she had become more important than me. She'd become more important than my family. And
that's what she did in Ruby's life. She made Ruby think the same thing, where it was like, Jodi was important to me. Jodi's the one that I'm going to worship. And then my kids, who cares about my kids?
And while I thought I was doing this amazing job with my kids, the amount of time that she was taking, I still get really upset.
Yeah, also, I wonder, when you do have that many kids, that's tough. Like, think about like restaurant reservations, when you're going on vacation, car rentals, like even getting a van doesn't fit 10 people, because you would have husband, wife, and then 8 kids. So I wonder, how do they do their car arrangements and all that stuff? Maybe they drive separately. That would drive me nuts. I don't know. Yeah, that's crazy. I was thinking about that when I was at a rental car the other day.
Because it was so selfish. I still feel really angry. Angry at myself for not seeing it. And angry at her for what she did, knowingly. I gave her a lot of time in 2020. And I was pregnant and had given birth to my 8th child in September of 2020. I think she could feel my edge.
Wait, one in chat if you can see this. I don't know why. Everything on my end is like spinning. One in chat if you can see, or if you can hear this. My chat is spinning right now. I'm trying to open my email that's spinning. It's just kind of spinning right now. 1 in chat if you can see this, and 2 in chat if you're like, I can't hear you, but then you wouldn't be able to hear me anyways.
Agitation. I think she could feel that behind these phone calls, where Johnny and I were trying so hard to come up with a plan for these coaches that were getting trained, to have the freedom to go out and teach in their own method and their own manner, making a commission, or let's see, charging how they wanted, and then only giving a small portion to Jodi.
Okay, my chat's frozen, but I can see you guys on my OBS screen, so I'll wait for it to load. Oh, God.
You know, we had discussed the best business models over and over and over, and we were trying to do what's best for these women who were going to utilize these things as part of their livelihood. And I was getting tired and agitated, and I think that was a part of why she started telling me her dreams. I think that's why she started expressing her personal life to me, to get a hook in.
To get you sucked in even more, to get you to be even more empathetic. Oh, Lord.
To my heart, to control.
When you have this many kids, the elder kids can care of the younger. I don't know. I wouldn't put it on kids to do that. That's a lot of fucking work. To help with like some stuff, sure, but yeah, no, it depends on how young the kids are. I don't know. That's just too much responsibility to put on a child.
How I viewed her as this poor woman who's all alone in the world, who's just trying to lead people to truth. And how could I walk away from that? How could I leave that?
In Hispanic families, you put the kid on top of a kid, no seatbelt needed. That's what we did in Thailand too. We like sat in Thailand. It was so fucking dangerous. I was sitting in the front because I get car sick, but then my cousin had to sit on my lap. And how old was I? I was like, I don't know, I think I was like 19 years old. And then my cousin was like 4 years old. I'm like, this is so dangerous. Like, we're going to get in a car accident. And then the back seat, it was like 5 people just piling on top of each other. Reminds me of the high school days. And then, in high school, we even put someone in the trunk too, because we couldn't fit her. And she's like, it's okay, I'll sit in the trunk. I'm like, I mean, if you want to sit in the trunk, go ahead. I'm not sitting in the trunk. But that was a high school days. Don't do that. Okay, that's dangerous.
By the end of 2020, Ruby and I had decided to do a YouTube channel together called Under the Rug. It's no coincidence that I also am calling this channel Under the Rug. After it was all deleted and completely dismantled, I had learned through the process of Ruby and I doing Under the Rug everything that had been under the rug of Jodi, and that she'd been hiding for decades. And so that's
why I was like, when I found out about their YouTube channel name, I was like, that's a very interesting YouTube channel name, given with what we know now.
Brought it back. When Ruby and I were putting this together, I had already seen how Ruby utilized these teachings and how harsh they were. I was taken aback many times by the lack of compassion that I had heard in how she shared the things that we were both learning. You know, it was the evidence that two people can hear the same thing and interpret it entirely different. And as we were doing this channel, I thought,
listen, I think Ruby just wanted to control, and she wanted just to fucking dominate. Okay, she had a lot of control issues.
I would be able to help her see how these are beneficial through the lens of love, rather than the lens of control. And so we got things set up to do that. That was the end of 2020. Ruby and I had been talking about a woman that she'd been working with. She was sponsoring her through the 12-step program, I believe. That was something that was very common in connections. Even if you weren't addicted to a substance, you could be addicted to denial, you could be addicted to living in victim or some other stupid term. And she'd been helping this woman. And I remember a conversation where she said that she was going to drop sponsoring this woman, because she had the goal to do her dishes before she went to bed every night, and she just wasn't doing the dishes. And so she's not coming through, so she's living a dishonest life. And Ruby had said all these things.
You're living a dishonest life. You're supposed to do the dishes before you get bed. Wait, hold on a second. She was sponsoring this woman because, oh God.
That she was going to drop sponsoring this woman, because she was
going to drop sponsoring this woman, okay?
Goal to do her dishes before she went to bed every night, and she just wasn't doing the dishes. And so she's not coming through, so she's living a dishonest life. And Ruby had said all these things. And I said, how do you know that woman wasn't abused in front of the kitchen sink every single day as a child? How do you know that being in front of the kitchen sink is the most traumatic place in the entire house to be? And that's why she won't do them. And she's not going to heal until she figures that out. And Ruby just looked at me, like down her nose, and said, I've never heard Jodi explain it that way. And I was shocked. Because in my mind, I was thinking, isn't it a given? Like, you think you can just like talk to this woman over and over and then she'll start doing her dishes? Like, isn't it a given that there is something bigger and deeper going on that you can't help? So that was the first thing where I was like, how could you have no compassion towards this person? The second thing was, you've never heard Jodi explain it that way? When did
maybe Jodi never explained it that way, or maybe Jodi did explain it that way at the surface level initially, and then Ruby just took the pieces that she liked and then used them and utilized them how she wanted to. All right, where were we? Something about women washing dishes. Ruby's like, I never heard Jodi say that.
Did she become the gauge to how you see others? And that was one of the first times that I was like, who am I relying on for information? Am I only holding people, talking to people and explaining things because that's how it was explained through Jodi, or because that feels right? Because it feels that is a good means or method to healing. And that was at the end of 2020. So we had this YouTube channel that was about to begin in January, Under the Rug. I had started being agitated with the amount of time that we were putting into this program. Jodi had been confined.
No, and Jodi agitated with the time that she was putting into the program, but mostly with fucking Jodi and her bullshit and her being possessed and all that stuff.
Fighting in these dreams, in me with these dreams that I felt honored to be included in, and yet was like, who has dreams like this? Like these are worse than any horror movie I've ever heard of. And so it started showing some glimpses into her life behind closed doors. At that point, I should mention, I also started becoming more aware of her personal life, of her relationship with her children, and how it was different than it had ever been explained. And so all of these alarms were going off, and yet it wasn't enough for me to pull out. It wasn't enough for me to recognize that this is functioning as a cult, and that I need to leave. If you take anything away from this video, I hope that it's recognizing that these teachings, any teachings, can be good until they're weaponized. You can recognize somebody's in moves from peace to pain, but when you look at their pain without compassion and start saying, well, what did you do to get there? Mm-hmm. Well, how are you being selfish? Well, how this, how that?
It's when you start getting pretty fucking judgmental of people.
You start manipulating them into a state of self-worthlessness. And what I started recognizing was that these teachings were being weaponized more often within how Jodi taught them, more often than they were being like a ladder out of a pit. Instead of lowering down a ladder, somebody who's suffering in a hole, it was standing at the top and saying, well, you got yourself in there. How are you going to get?
Mm-hmm. And then she was slowly taking that ladder back from the person's, out of the person's reach. It's like, okay, you're just going to be stuck in there. Slowly taking the ladder out. You can't get out. Sucks for you. Doing good. Thanks for asking. Good to hear that. You had a stomach virus from some bad pork. You went to the ER yesterday? Ooh, Jesus. Wait, what happened? How many days ago did you eat the pork? Was it like from the same day? Damn, that sucks. Because bad food poisoning is like, it's the worst. Hi, B King. How are you doing today?
Get yourself out. You have all the tools. What are you going to do? And it intellectualized this whole process and removed feeling from it. So she created an army of a bunch of people who could intellectualize problems with no feeling, and then call out others on saying, well, you're not living honest, responsible, humble. You're in denial of your distortion and you don't want to look at it. And it was a very unloving, unkind, and unsafe place. I have a lot of examples of that. I don't think I need to go into them. I have a lot of examples of little bite-sized moments that were good and that were healing, of phone calls with coaches or people that came to conferences and really took to some of the lessons. But those were the hearts of the coaches. Those were the hearts of the people who Jodi didn't own. She had turned everything into a weapon.
You know what? I saw some outfits from the Met Gala. What were your favorite outfits and what were your least favorite outfits? My least favorite that I saw so far was Kim Kardashian's. I was like, what the fuck is that? You can't even breathe, girl. But there were some really cool outfits. Like there was like a gothy looking outfit by Zendaya and this other, I don't know what her name is, but she had like, it looked like goth makeup with like spider webs and stuff. Looked really cool. Gigi Hadid's outfit looked really awesome.
Long before, with Jessie Hildebrand, she weaponized her teachings with Jessie Hildebrand, so she already knew how to do it. But it took a long time for her to lay the foundation to get somebody up out of the pain they were in, and then to turn them into a weapon to go out and judge others.
Hey, Thomas.
Ruby took to weaponizing these principles straight out of the gate, and I didn't know that.
Ruby was like, oh, now I have more tools of manipulation. Oh, let's do it. It gave her more authority, more tools for her to utilize in order to manipulate other people in her life, whether it was like her family members, her children, maybe even her friends, okay? And then whoever was in the connections therapy sessions.
Her children suffered a lot longer than in the basement of Jodi's house. And some of you saw it on their YouTube channel. But you could only see a part of it. Understanding how a daughter could so badly just want the approval of her mother, and then be given these tools instead of a way to go, oh, this is how I can love myself more. It's if I just do this, 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 and this, then I will have earned my mother's love. And a mother who has these weapons, who can say, do you see how you're not a good child? Do you see how you're selfish? Because look, I have the evidence. You are in distortion because you are using these denial strategies. You're using this, whatever words would have been used.
Yeah, if you're not in peace, you're in distortion.
Used in connections to basically break these families apart, to turn these children.
I mean, honestly, like my mom, she had like 3 kids, right? I already had to raise my 2 siblings when I was like, what, fucking in like 3rd grade? It was a lot, okay? I don't know what the fuck I was doing. I didn't know what we were doing. One was died when our toaster caught on fire.
Into these little people who just want love, who just want to be seen and told they're good, and told they're enough. They're willing to do things in the name of truth to earn the love of their mother. That's the weapon Jodi created that was used not just in the Franke family.
I think, honestly, Jodi just enhanced it. Because Ruby Franke was already employing those tactics, but Jodi just enhanced it times like fucking 10, 20, 50.
But were used in many homes. Not to that extent, but still enough to the extent of a parent saying to a child, see, there's the evidence you're not humble. See, that's why you're suffering, is because you're doing this and you're doing that, as opposed to.
And we saw how this affected the children, because when E was found, remember, she was so scared about what Jodi thought. She was like, oh, where's Jodi? Where's Jodi? Would Jodi be okay that you guys are here? She even asked about her mom, all right? She was like so brainwashed that Jodi was like the fucking god. And then with R, when he went to the house, R was like, oh, can you please call the cops? Take me to jail. It's because these kids were so mind-fucked by their mom and their mom's therapist, this woman who had like, authority in their fucking lives. Mona Patel,
as opposed to a home full of love and full of forgiveness and full of understanding, full of the ability to recognize that we're all weak, that we're all suffering in some way. And so if your husband lashes out, it's from a place of pain. If your child is just knowingly being obstinate, they just need love. They need a consistent form, a consistent parent who is saying, I'm not going to go anywhere, and I can tell you're having a hard time. I thought that these teachings lent to that kind of home.
I didn't think that woman was genuine at first, but now I do. She seems really heartbroken about this. Yeah, I like when I watched her first video, it seemed genuine to me, honestly. It seemed genuine to me. I was initially a little bit like kind of like hesitant because I was like, do we want to watch her video? Like what is she gonna say? But it came across as pretty genuine. Yeah, I don't know. And I appreciated like listening from her perspective about, her, because she was like pretty big up in connections. Like she wasn't just a nobody, right? Remember Pam? Pam's like, oh, I'm president of Connections. But, when the police were talking, she's like, oh, Connections? I don't know. It's just a thing where people meet. I don't know. It's like webinar. I don't know what it is. But she was pretty hype in Connections. And we watched her videos where she was like really pushing on Connections on people. She's like, oh my God, like this is me and my husband. Connections done so much for us. Blah, 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 blah. We do the seminars together. And they had like a little skit thing. You can see all the connections like written all over her face. But now she's like distanced herself from it. I do appreciate hearing her insight about this and then what her thoughts were. I think like even though like she said that her main goal is to kind of just like explain to people about her involvement with Connections and how she felt like she was taking blame for introducing Jodi to Ruby and blah, blah, blah. I think most importantly, I think what she's just trying to do is she's just trying to get it off her chest, and she's just trying to like process through all this shit, because even though this happened like a long time ago for her, like what, a couple years ago, it's still a lot to have to like mentally grapple with the shit that fucking Jodi Hildebrandt puts you through. Your family, you know, maybe her children as well. But I think it's a good way for her to like kind of just, I don't know, just talk it out, just get it off her chest and just process it all over again. Because like, I don't know, she probably has a therapist that she talks to, but I mean, this is kind of like a decent way to kind of just having people hear you out.
And I think they could have, if the motive of the people using them could hold them in that light. But too many people who were good and full of light were like, no, thank you, I'm out, because they could feel something off. But a lot of the people that stayed in it enjoyed the control that those teachings gave over others, enjoyed the position of, see, I'm above you because I know these things and you don't. And I am guilty of that kind of pride. So how do you not join a cult?
And actually, you know, that's not something that's just like cult-like behavior where it's like, oh, I know more than you. Like, you know, I enjoy the position that I'm in. That happens too when you join a new job force for the first time. You guys ever like come in and like, you know, you guys have your background knowledge, all that, your experience, your schoolwork and all that stuff. But then you go into like a workforce and then everyone kind of like treats you like crap because they're like, oh, you're like the newbie here. You're like new to this workforce. I don't know. I always hated that mentality. But that's how people are sometimes, you know?
Look at the teachings. Is one person at the top controlling everything?
Like,
and
you think you're better than other people because you think you know more.
Holding all the power for themselves? And do they live as the exception to their own teachings? And are those teachings utilized as weapons more often than they are in light? That's an individual question. I don't know that you can look at an organization and say, oh yeah, that's weaponized and that's more negative than it is positive. But look at yourself. Are you taking the things you're learning from a self-help book and using it to judge others? Are you taking teachings from a person and putting them up on a pedestal when something isn't in line with what they're saying and what they're living? Ultimately, how to not join a cult is to have the ability to look at yourself in depth very clearly and know what you stand for, what you believe, why you believe it, and how strong you are in it, that you're not willing to bend it for somebody who just comes along and has a good sales pitch. My next video is going to cover 2021. A lot of things took place in 2021, beginning with...
Was that when Jodi lived at her house?
Coaches being trained and just about in February, finishing their training and being ready to go out and teach on their own, to Jodi coming and staying in my home for 6 weeks, to the end of my friendship with Ruby. The end very abruptly and harshly. And
yeah, because Ruby was like, oh, wait, I can be the best friend now? I'm going to kick Paige Hanna out of my fucking life. Fuck Paige Hanna. I'm going to be the cozy one next to Jodi Hildebrandt. She gets to be the best friend now. So it doesn't surprise me that Ruby was able to cut out Paige Hanna so quickly and easily. I don't know. That's how I saw it.
And then the pieces that needed to be picked up after that. So thank you for your patience. I don't know when these will be put out.
Yay, be the best
I really appreciate the emails, even your questions. I'm happy to give clarity, and I'd love to hear what you learned from anything I said. Thank you.
All right, that was with Paige Hanna. So yeah, we'll wait until she puts out another video. I don't know, I think it's pretty interesting for her to talk about like the connections and all that stuff and how Ruby utilized connection. I think there was a lot more information probably in the first one. The second one, you know, we're kind of just getting more refined. Maybe answers, timelines, I guess. Was this when Jodi was trying to get... that was an allegation that Kevin Franke brought up. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't really see that really working out. If it was like, oh, Jodi Hildebrandt was trying to get with Paige Hanna, that's something that's more in line with, you know, some of Jodi's behaviors in the past. But I don't know. Maybe Jodi's bi, maybe not. I don't know. We're not quite sure. All right, y'all. So that was Paige Hanna right there, talking about her experience with Connections. Again, she was like a board member in Connections. Her and her husband were like heavily into it. There's a video that they did on YouTube where they did their introduction to their family channel, and you could see Connections written in the whiteboard right behind them. So yeah, keep an eye out to see when she posts the next one. This one came out about a week ago, so maybe we'll see it in about like next couple weeks. Also, by the way, Fallout. Hello, have you guys been watching the Fallout TV show? surprisingly pretty good. I've been enjoying it a lot.